Today I'm interviewing Swami Nishchalananda, the founder, the founding director of this beautiful Mandala Yoga Ashram. Some 36 years ago he started it going, ably helped by many other people, but he was the driving force, the inspiration behind this ashram. So I'll introduce you now to Swami Nishchalananda. Good morning, Swamiji.
Good morning to you. It's a pleasure to sit here and share with you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. You founded the ashram about 37 years ago now.
I did.
And you were the primary influencer of everything that happened. You were the Acharya, I believe is the correct word.
Yeah, the Sanskrit word Acharya means teacher or head of an institution. And because I lived in India so many years, 14 years in total. And while I was there, I imbibed so many extraordinary teachings, spiritual teachings from my guru, and but also from other people all over India. And so I came back with and I did a lot of practice, of course. So I came back with all this this knowledge and experience, and I was able to plant or pass on all this, a lot of it, to those people who came here.
And part of having all that knowledge is why your mother ashram at Bihar said, we are going to call you Yogacharya, also Master of Yoga. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was given this title at a certain point, and I got a certificate that shows it, Yeah. I don't believe much in certificates, but I do have a certificate saying I'm a Yogacharya, yes.
Yeah. So, which brings us neatly to the role of a teacher in mathematics or gardening or whatever is to impart information, to tell you how to do something. It occurs to me that the role of a teacher of yoga, Tantra, Advaita, is a little more than that. Could you tell me whether you think that's true, and if so, in what way?
Yeah, of course. There is a yoga teacher does impart information about the practices and background and the philosophy, that's for sure. But there's more to it. When you deal with spiritual things, then the teacher, him or herself, has to be embodied in that kind of understanding. Then it's not just intellectual understanding. It comes out as an energetic transmission. And I think this is what people feel when they're in the ashram now, and in the past, of course. There's something here, in the ground, in the air, in the buildings, and it gives a transmission of energy and inspiration and experience even to those who are sufficiently open to absorb it. So information is also important, as it is with all subjects, but in a spiritual realm, in spiritual teaching, there needs to be a presence also, or an energy presence, which the students can pick up, which is beyond, actually, it's beyond their intellectual input, fundamental. And this pushes us to another way of understanding. It pushes our understanding beyond the intellect, so that we start to know on a deeper level the fact of the fact that we are conscious spiritual beings. So this is what this ashram tries to do, and it seems to work, because many people come here and they get very inspired, and they leave here and their life is transformed, and it gives them inspiration to get on with their life, which is absolutely fundamental. With a new vision, I don't give anything actually. If I do anything, it's I catalyze what is already existent on a deeper level in each person, and they come here and they have the space and the encouragement and good company also, and the teachings where I and other teachers, not just me, and the ashram also helps to catalyze what is already within, and it's just a question of recognizing it and bringing it to the forefront.
Beautiful. And of course, this hasn't just been the domain of yoga, has it? It's been at the core of religion, especially maybe the mystical tradition within religions, rather than just the belief systems.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, all religions have an esoteric aspect, and this, for me, this is the real essence of all religions, and that's the meditative aspect where people actually look within. It's not just external stuff, teachings. It's something that actually goes within the individual, and that's within all religions, of course. And we can see it in the holy texts of all religions. We can see this thing, this quality, which is fundamental if we are to go deeper in our understanding and our self-identity. So I'm very happy to introduce you to St. Francis. Not that he needs any introduction, I'm sure. He's guarding the lake for us, the pond. And he was the epitome of, I would say, perfection in spirituality.
Touching on imparting of knowledge, books, although really we know in practice of Yoga Tantra Advaita that the world of ideas is in one sense a dead world. You know, it's experience, it's everything. And yet books play a significant part.
Yeah. I mean, I love books. I've always loved books, and I've read so many absolutely inspiring books in India, some of the classical texts. But even in the modern world, there are some very, very good texts around too, with a modern perspective, which includes science. They can inspire us and they can inform us, and they may inspire us to look deeper. Fundamental on the spiritual path, on the yogic path, is that practice is combined with reading. I mean, there are some people who don't do much reading, but because of the quality of their being, they go deeper. This is in India, there are many sages who are not actually very educated, but they have this depth of wisdom. Some are very educated also. It doesn't depend on book education. But I must say, there are very good books. The ancient Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads, the Hatha Yoga texts, the Yoga Vasishta, Ashtavakra Gita. These are absolutely inspiring texts, which were written from a level of understanding of the person who wrote them, or the person who wrote them listening to someone, which comes from a deeper level, and so it can touch us. But equally, I say there are excellent texts in the modern world which can do the same thing. It depends the level of understanding in which the books were written. If the level of understanding is superficial, even though the words may be highfalutin, then the impact is not there actually. So it's the depth that's there in the writing of the book that's most fundamental. And then it can touch us somewhere so that we can read it, and it just touches a spark within us, and we may realize something that we didn't realize before. And that's what a yoga text is all about. It's to try and open us up to stuff that we didn't really understand in the past, or maybe we didn't even know of it. But the main emphasis of the yoga and tantra and Advaita is practice, because it's through practice that we can actually deepen our understanding. So that is absolutely fundamental, yes.
Let's go back to India. We'll jump back into the past again.
Okay.
And you arrived in India. Were you looking for something? Were you just traveling? You ended up there for 14 years with your guru.
Yeah, I travelled around the world for halfway around the world anyway for 2 years, and then I started a career as an engineer in a consulting engineering company.
Okay.
And they sent me to Northern Ireland actually, and there, it's a long story and I won't bore you with it, but somehow I had this inspiration from within to start yoga, which is very strange because at that time there was almost zero teaching of yoga in the Western world at least.
Really?
But anyway, it was an inner voice, and in Belfast, I was living in Belfast, and I phoned around different health studios to see if they knew anything about yoga. None of them did. But eventually one of them said, well, there's a yoga school here actually. It's one of the few yoga schools in Europe. So I was really impressed. I thought, wow, perfect. So I phoned the place, the place, and I established contact with the person who ran the place. So she was an Indian lady, and immediately we became very close and good friends actually. And there I started yoga, and then I liked it so much. Every Monday I used to go there and practice with them for 2 hours, and it was so transformative. It felt so good. I said to her, the in charge, I want to go deeper into this. She said, that's no problem. My teacher is coming here in a couple of weeks' time. Meet him. He's coming to give a series of lectures on the different paths of yoga. She said, I suggest you attend his lectures, which I did actually, and then have a talk to him, which I did. I said to him, I'd like to come to India for 2 years to study yoga. And he kind of did this and said, yes, okay, come along, which is what I did. I handed in my notice at the company, took 2 months, and then I went off to India. I went down the hippie trail. You could in those days. You could go through, fantastic. You could go through Turkey, Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan into India. It was a great trip. It took me about 6 weeks to go down there. And then eventually I ended up in India in this ashram in Bihar, in rural Bihar. And immediately, as soon as I arrived, I was accepted by Swami Nishchalananda, who became my teacher subsequently. And I immediately felt I was home. It was a very strong feeling, and immediately I was engaged in doing repairs in the ashram and doing my practice and chanting. We did a lot of chanting from the first day. We were chanting Bhagavad Gita and all these kind of things. It was very intense, and I became very friendly with a music teacher, and he taught me the harmonium, and he was teaching me all these songs. Or even if he didn't teach me, I just had to be there, and he would sing and I would listen, and I would imbibe them. So I very much took to the life in India, and after 2 years actually went on to 14 years. I mean,
wow.
I had no plans of staying initially for very long, but I was so much at home in India that I stayed for 14 years eventually. Beautiful. And then after 7 years in the ashram in northern India, then I started traveling around, staying in area ashrams in southern India and central India, and then using them as a base. And from there I would travel around teaching in villages, companies, cities, teaching yoga, giving courses, 5 days, 1 week courses. And I was very busy for 7 years doing that too. And of course, in my first 7 years, I wrote quite a lot of books on yoga in the name of my teacher. And that was a very intense time also on different aspects of yoga.
The famous and very well known, I would imagine, Asana Pranayama Mudra Bandha, the orange book is.
Yeah, I wrote the first
edition
of that. Yeah. It's been modified since, of course, and updated. But I wrote the first edition of the APMB, Asana Pranayama Mudra Bandha.
And the astonishing systematic, I forget the full title, systematic.
There's and later on, a few years later, again, this is the first 7 years when I was in northern India. My teacher asked me to write a book, a 36 3-year course on Kriya Yoga, which is a very special form of yoga, which I took to like a duck to water, and I was practicing every morning from 3 o'clock in the morning till breakfast time at 6:30 or something. And in this way, I gained the experience of what this Kriya Yoga was about. And I wrote this book. Took me 2 years actually. 2 years to write the book, but it was a 3-year course. And in that there's so many descriptions of the different paths of yoga, including Kriya Yoga.
So, Swamiji, while you were in India, in that second 7 years traveling around, how were you accepted by Indian people, that the birthplace of yoga, and you were a Westerner dressed in the garb of a Swami? How were you accepted?
I was very well accepted, actually. Indian people generally are very intuitive. So if you're putting on a show and you actually don't know what you're talking about, they will very quickly know it.
Yeah.
But I did know, because I'd been living the life of a Swami in the ashram, in different ashrams, and I was teaching yoga all over India, and I had the knowledge, and people knew it. And I'd be in trains or buses or whatever, and people would come up to me and we'd start talking. And very, very quick, even rickshaw wallahs, sometimes I'd have a deep philosophical discussion with a rickshaw wallah or something. And I still have a lot of contact with people in India, and there's a great love between us, I must say.
I believe they even wanted you to stay and found an ashram in India rather than coming back.
Yes, indeed. In my last 2 years in India, I was still travelling around, and in different parts of India. It was quite extraordinary. By then I knew I had to start an ashram. I wasn't very keen, because I know if you engage in starting an ashram, it's a lifetime's work, which I knew very well. I was a bit reticent to engage in that way, but it had to be done. I could feel it. It was something I had to do. And I think people knew this, and so in different parts of India, North India, East India, South India also, they were offering me land. They were saying, look, we've got some land, come and let's start an ashram, we'll get the money and build the buildings. And I was very tempted, but sometimes we have gut feelings, and my gut feeling was, it's very nice, but it's not what I have to do. And of course, now I realise what I had to do was to come to the Western world, to the UK, and start an ashram here. So I came back to the UK, and I mentioned to some friends that I had a strong gut feeling that I should start an ashram somewhere in Europe. And one of them said, a good friend who actually still lives in Llandilo, the nearby town, he said to me, well, you've got some property in Wales, haven't you? Let's go and have a look at it. So we came down here, and it was a dank day. It wasn't a very inspiring day, and we walked around, and the whole place was a derelict ruin, actually, almost. It was still functioning as a farm, but not very successfully. And my first feeling was, no, this is not a good place to have an ashram. But actually we did start, and in reflection, in retrospect, I realised it's a perfect place for an ashram, because it's got a great view. it's away from the world, you know. We can do our own thing here. We can do chanting. We can do meditation. Well, yeah, a lot of people come here and they like just to sit here and just get an idea of spaciousness and fresh air and feel the fresh air. It's a very nice place just to sit, just to be. And I think it was absolutely destined to be an ashram because it's such a perfect place. It's on top of a hill. There's no one around. We can make lots of noise, a lot of singing and chanting. And it's a perfect place for an ashram, actually. And if you believe in destiny, which I do, the place was destined to become an ashram. And therefore my mother and father, who moved here, they were part of the process. That's what I think. There's a passing on through generations. I'm very pleased that despite my reticence in the first day or two, it took off, and it's been going now for, as you say, 37 years, and it's working very well also. And we've received people from all over the planet, actually, mostly from Europe, of course, from UK, Ireland, France, Sweden, Germany, Spain. But we've had people from India, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, US, South America also, Russia, Ukraine, all these places, Norway. We've had people from all of these places, actually.
Astonishing, all coming to the top of a Welsh mountain.
Indeed, indeed. And I think the local sheep are also quite happy about it. I think they were living quite lonely lives, and now they've got some inspiration on this hilltop.
You did tell me once that in those early days that you went into the sadhana hall and they were waiting for you there saying, okay, where's our meditation?
Exactly, yeah. One morning I went into the hall and we didn't have any doors on the hall at that time. And lo and behold, sitting happy as you please in the middle of the hall, on the carpet even, were 4 or 5 sheep. And they were quite happy, and they looked very meditative. And anyway, eventually we had to put up fences, of course, to keep the sheep in their quarters, in their area. And we put doors on the hall too, so they couldn't come in anymore for their meditation.
No, but it does raise the issue that, you know, we have all this stuff out there now, all these varieties of yoga. And one of those, did you know, is goat yoga, even llama yoga. So this is clearly a precedent to do sheep yoga.
Absolutely. And maybe we'll produce a video on sheep yoga in the future. We'll see how it goes. They knew there was a vibe. Already there was a vibe here. There was something quite special. And it was a place where people could share with other people from other countries and exchange, you know, spiritual ideas and yogic practice and experience and so forth. And there was a vibe here. You go in the hall, even though, I mean, there was nothing there really, a few pictures and an old mat on the floor. Somehow there was a vibe there, and people realised that the vibe was the most important thing. And of course, in the course of time, slowly, the whole place was transformed. And now, of course, it's quite it's the building's in very, very good shape, and the gardens are fantastic. And here we have a beautiful pink water lily, and here it's not there at the moment, but white water lilies. On the other side of the pond there's some 2 types of pink coloured water lilies, and here there's another one beside this little island here. So it's very symbolic, like the lotus, so very symbolic in the yogic world. So we have them growing here, and it's absolutely wonderful. We grow a lot of our own food, not 100%, but we grow a lot of vegetables in the polytunnels. We've got 3 polytunnels, and if you walk in there now in the summer, I mean, it's absolutely full of vegetables. Figs, there's even 2 fig trees in there, which are absolutely abundant with figs. Very tasty too, and there's grapevines in there, and in September we get really tasty.
Which is great.
Yeah, and they're very tasty. I mean, they're not ready yet, but in September they'll be ready. Some of them are getting ready, going mauve.
Yeah.
In the future we may start producing our own wine, but not
Yay.
yet. But yeah, and we grow a lot of stuff here, and we try and respect the ecology of this area and try not to pollute it. And this must be good because I notice in the winter especially and spring, there are so many birds in the place, all kinds of birds. They come and we feed them, and they build their nests here, you know. Yeah. It's very, very, very comfortable for other creatures apart from human beings
as well. I heard tell about, well, I've seen pictures of this parrot that he had, and
he came with the name of George. It was a friend of the ashram. Didn't know what to do with him, and so he brought him to the ashram. Later we discovered it wasn't a him, it was a her. He changed the name to Georgina, but eventually I gave it a name Garuda, the mythical bird in Sanskrit, Garuda. Yeah. And it was a beautiful parrot, an African grey, and it used to perch on my shoulders, and other people also.
Is it true she was particularly foul-mouthed when she
Oh, absolutely. Apparently, the wife of the person who gave it to us was not in a good space for a while, and she was swearing everywhere. And of course, the parrot picked up all these swear words, and so when it first came, it was swearing like a trooper at everyone. But after a few months, it kind of cooled down on all the swear words, and it was saying Om Shanti Om and good night and good morning, and it was. I think that's coming back to what you said earlier on. Yeah, I think there is a thin veil here, and it's something that I wouldn't have accepted until I started doing yoga so many years ago. I mean, thin veil would have been double Dutch to me actually, but there is a thin veil. It's a place where people can come, and of course ashram means a refuge. It's a refuge, so people can take time out from their busy lives and they can share with people, and the atmosphere is such, the whole environment is such that they can open up. The veil is thin to their own being. I mean, that's the way of putting it. So they can open up to things that they hadn't realized before. And this has a very important impact on their life. So they go back from here after a few days or a week, and the inspiration they've got here will obviously reflect into their daily life. So it reflects into their work and their family and their relationships and their friends and so forth. And I think that's a really positive aspect of yoga. Through each individual, it helps to transform society in a very subtle way, so that it becomes a bit sweeter. Because, society is a bit harsh at the moment. It's very harsh, actually. And I think when more and more people follow a spiritual path, be it yoga or whatever, but any spiritual path, I think it generally has a very positive impact on society, to be honest.
You talk of other spiritual systems, and of course we live on a planet where a huge proportion of the population are religious in one way or another. Hindu, Christian, Muslim being probably three of the big ones. How do you see yoga fitting with religion? Are the two compatible?
Yeah, I mean, yoga, first of all, comes from Hinduism, and that's really important to acknowledge that. It comes from India and it comes from Hinduism. But yoga really is an esoteric system. It's a way of deepening the way we relate to life and to ourselves.
Could you define esoteric?
Sorry?
Could you define?
Yeah, esoteric means the undercurrent, the secret. They're not really secret, hidden, but it's things that you can only access through your own being, really. So esoteric means that, as opposed to exoteric. Exoteric is where things are more external. You have, external rituals and all the rest of it. They have their place. I'm not against them, but it tends to keep us kind of superficial in our understanding, and keeps us extroverted. Mm-hmm. So they have their place, but an esoteric system is where we are obliged really to look within to find out how we function. And that's an esoteric system. So yeah, yoga comes from Hinduism, there's absolutely no question about it. You can find it in Buddhism also, and you will find it in different forms in all religions. It's the esoteric aspect of Islam, which would be Sufism, for example, and other systems, and esoteric Christianity is there. So yoga, though it comes from Hinduism, doesn't oblige us to follow any particular religion. It's a system of practices, a collection of practices which have been evolved in India over thousands of years, and they're practical systems, whether it's working on the body, working on the mind, concentration, meditation, chanting even, they're all practical systems which anyone can use if they are looking for a deeper understanding. So even there are people who don't necessarily believe in God, or they're atheists, agnostics, they can also start yoga. There's no problem. But of course, my proposition is if they go deeper, their whole understanding of life will change. And my opinion is that a person starts yoga, they can't remain an atheist. Absolutely no way. They can't remain an agnostic either. It goes that the deeper we go, the deeper understanding, the more we realize that this universe is based on an absolute mystery and a miracle, and there is an intelligence behind everything. You can call it what you want. So the beauty of yoga is that it doesn't oblige you to believing anything. It just obliges us, if anything, to practice, to open up, see what's going on, not being gullible. It's not asking us to be gullible, naive. No, it's asking us to be open to new experience and new understanding through the practice of yoga and what it offers us. My heart open wide, I pray for thee. Doors of my heart open wide, I pray for thee. Open wide, open wide, open wide and set me free. Open wide, open wide, open wide and set me free.
Yeah.
And when I lived in India, I was teaching yoga to Muslims, to Christians, to Jains, to Sikhs, as well as Hindus, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So same as my experience in Zambia. Well, we don't have Jains and Sikhs, but and the one thing that I've said to you before is that they have noticed getting into meditation.
Yeah.
They say this creates a space within which we can pray. And I think that's a very beautiful way of putting it, because
it is. It's very beautiful, actually. Yeah, and I'm very delighted that Nada, who's interviewed me, is in Zambia. He goes to Zambia regularly, and he's transmitting yoga to people in northern Zambia, which is absolutely fantastic. And I've Zoomed the people there, and I've seen them, and they're all smiling and they're absolutely inspired by these teachings.
And they were inspired by having you Zoom them, and they're always asking, how is Swamiji, how is Swamiji? And once again, I apologize for a shameless plug for Yoga Zambia, but on average, every couple of weeks, for those who don't know, see this movie, Swamiji gives online satsang, questions and answers, a little bit of guided Advaitic journey. Very, very beautiful, and we're joined by people from around the world, some of your old Indian contacts, new people signing up for that all the time from. And some people prefer Zoom. They say, well, I can work in the kitchen, I can cook the food, sit and have a cup of tea,
have a cup of tea, I can do gardening, and I'm still participating in a course in the ashram. So some people prefer Zoom, actually, and of course it cuts out the need to travel long distances. And for people who live on the other side of the planet, I mean, the journey here would be not out of the question, but not very practical. So there are many advantages.
Swamiji, now you've you've backed off from being an active, the director, the Acharya of this ashram, and you have handed over the reins, as it were, to a new director. You're still called the founding director, but you've handed over the reins to Swami Satyadaya. Are you enjoying your, what would you call it, retirement? I don't believe you will ever retire, personally.
No, I haven't retired, but I haven't. I'm still busy doing things, teaching. I'm still doing teachings. I'm giving Zoom sayings, as I said earlier on. I'm still very busy, but it was time. Even 10 years ago, I think I should have pulled back and handed on the baton to someone else. But it just wasn't the right time. But 2 years ago, I handed the baton on to Swami Satyadaya, who's very, very capable, and he's running the ashram very well. And he's helped, of course, more than helped. He's, his sidekick is Swami Krishna Prem, who's been here many, many years also. Together, they make a fantastic team, and they're running the ashram very beautifully. And it gives me time just to be. I kind of float around and look at the flowers and talk to people. And I'm not involved, as I was before, with administration. And I must admit, for the first 25 years, a lot of my time and energy was involved with administration and all this kind of stuff, and not enough, I think, to teaching. I did do a lot of teaching, of course, but now I can give more time to teaching if I want, and I think that's really important. So it's an evolution in the right direction, where I've handed on the baton, the reins to other people, to Swami Satyadaya and Swami Krishna Prem. And they have a good team around them too. And the ashram is going from strength to strength. And let's see what happens in the future.
Brilliant, brilliant. Swamiji, I take it on myself to say on behalf of the many, many people around the planet who've benefited from your teaching and your wisdom and your humor and your presence, that we thank you so much for dedicating your life to.
It's my pleasure, and people always say you're being selfless, but no, I've been selfish because by creating this place, I've had such contact, and being in India also, I've had contact with people, and it's been a selfish process where I've been able to share with people. So I don't know whether it's called selfless. I think it's selfish because it's given me so much.
And we thank you so much for your selfishness.
Thank you.
And we wish you, I know I'm talking on behalf of everyone, we wish you a happy, long, healthy life on the planet.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm in good shape at the moment, touch wood. But let's see, life is always presenting the unexpected, and I think that's part of yoga also, to be open to the unexpected, because it's the unexpected that can show us new horizons and can show us new understanding and can open us up to what we don't yet know. So let's be open to the unexpected.
Beautiful. Swamiji, thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.